Gopi Janavallabha Girvaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girvaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivachikacharya Satar Sata Shishimana's Divine Grace Saisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Bhagushiva Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityam Ananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai Maya Pradam Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, all glories you assembled devotees, all glories you assembled devotees, all glories you assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru.
Hare Krishna. We are very happy that today we have with us Her Grace Uttama Mataji. She is Prabhupada disciple, currently placed in Sharanagati community in Canada. She married Partha Prabhu in 1971. Both of them later on came in touch with Srila Prabhupada and got initiated from Srila Prabhupada in 1973. Since then, they have been very actively and wonderfully serving Prabhupada and his mission. So she has rendered many wonderful services as in teaching Krishna consciousness, in management services in temple, as well as pujari services in temple. She is also professionally qualified as a marriage counselor. Since 2004, she along with her husband, Partha Prabhu, they have been actively involved in Grahastha Vision team, which is helping those who want to get married and as well as those who are married to have a happy Krishna conscious married life. She really enjoys working with youths, teaching them Bhagavad Gita and relationship skills. So both of them have been traveling extensively around world, training devotees in having Krishna conscious marriage. They travel, they have done the courses in Europe, in America, in Canada, in South Africa, in Africa, in for devotees of China, Russia, India, Middle East, practically all over the world. And they do this very special course, 2 days, 12 hours training course entitled Strengthening Bond That Free Us. They will be also doing this course starting from tomorrow and after tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, here at Newtown. So they have co-authored a beautiful book called Heart and Soul Connections, a devotional guide to marriage, service, and love. They have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Other time, His Holy Jayadvaita Maharaj was telling what ISKCON needs is grandmothers. If we have enough grandmothers, then we can have really happy Krishna conscious society and wonderful devotees. So we have a very illustrious, proper disciple and grandmother here with us to share her wisdom in form of Bhagavatam class. So let us welcome her for to our ISKCON Newtown temple by loudly chanting 3 times. Haribo! Haribo! Thank you very much, Mataji, for being here.
So it's thank you. It's so nice to finally be a grandmother, because if you were just my sons, you wouldn't listen to me. But now that I'm your grandma, you might pay attention. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nasta Pareshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So our hopes is that by the blessings of the Supreme Lord, by the previous Acharyas, by Lord Narayan, by Narayan Rishi, by Mother Saraswati, the goddess of fortune, and by His Grace Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Bhagavatam, that somehow or other by attentively hearing, we can somehow or other cleanse all these inauspicious things in our hearts. So that's why we're here. So today we're reading from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 60, text 41. Yadvanchayan ripa shikshama nayonga vainya jayantanahusa gayadaya aikyapatyam Rajam Vrishtrija Vivishurvanam Ambujaksha Siddhanti Tenu Padavim Ta Iha Stita Kim Yadvanchayan Ripa Shikshamana Yongavanya Jayantanahu Sagayadaya Aikyapatyam Rajam Vishrija Vivishur Vanyamam Bujaksha Sirandite Nu Padavim Ta Iha Stita Kim. Anyone else? Yadvanchayan Ripa Shikshamane Ungavanya Jayantanahu Sagayadaya Aikyapadyam Rajam Vishrija Vivishur Vanyam Ambukcha Siddhanti tenu padavim ityahasita kim. Yadvanchayan vipasikayon gavanya. Ayantanahu sagayadaya aikyapatyam. Rajam vishvija vivishurvanyamakudaksha. Siddhanti te nubilitam itahasakakim. Yadvanchayan vipa shikshamanayon galvanyam. Jayantanahu sagayadaya aikyapatyam. Rajam vishvija vivishurvanyam ambujaksha. Siddhanti ne nupadavam te asivakti. Yavanchaya nripa shikshamanayon gavanya. Jayantadaknusayayayakam. Rajam vishvija vivishurvanyam ambujaksha. Siddhante te nupadavimita yasika. Would you like to try, Mataji? Ajam vishvija vishurvanyam ambujaksha. Siddhante te. Yat. For whom? Vanchaya, out of desire. Nripa, of kings. Shikshamanaya, the crown jewels. Angavanya, Jayanta, Nahusa, Gaya, Daya. Anga, the father of Vena. Vainya, Prithu, the son of Vena. Jayanta, Bharat. Nahusha, Yayati, Gaya, and others. Aikya, exclusive. Patyam, having sovereignty. Rajyam, their kingdoms. Vishrijya, abandoning. Vivishu, entered. Vanam, the forest. Ambuja Aksha, O lotus-eyed one. Siddhanti, suffer frustration. Te, your. Anupadavim, on the path. Te, they. Iha, in this world. Ashtitaha, fixed. Kim, whether. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Wanting your association, the best of kings, Anga, Vanya, Jayanta, Nahusha, Gaya, and others, abandoned their absolute sovereignty and entered the forest to seek you out. How could those kings suffer frustration in this world, O lotus-eyed one? Purport. Here Queen Rukmini refutes the ideas put forth by Lord Krishna in text 13. In fact, Srimati Rukmini Devi repeats Lord Krishna's own words. The Lord said, Astita padavim subrutapaya siddhanti yoshita. Women who follow my path generally suffer. Here Rukmini Devi says, Siddhanti te nupadavim ta iha stita kim. Why should those fixed on your path suffer in this world? She gives the example of many great kings who renounced their powerful sovereignty to enter the forest, where they performed austerities and worshipped the Lord intensely, desiring his transcendental association. Thus, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srimati Rukmini Devi here intends to tell Sri Krishna, you have said that I, a king's daughter, am unintelligent and frustrated because I married you. But how can you accuse all these great enlightened kings of being unintelligent? They were the wisest of men, yet they gave up everything to follow you and were certainly not frustrated by the result. Indeed, they achieved the perfection of your association. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesh Sunyavadi Pastatade Shararane Om Jnana Timarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yet Kripatam Maham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarnam Vanchakalpatrivascha Kripasindhuvayevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So in this verse, Rukmini's very upset that Krishna would think that she had made an unintelligent decision and married him. So she's pointing out here that so many very wise kings, they've completely given up their reign of power just to go to the forest and meditate upon Krishna, intensely desiring to achieve his association. Because Krishna had said previously in text 13 that, why the heck are you marrying a man like me? Because, you marry somebody like me who's kind of a bit of a unusual character. My activities are not approved by society. And usually when a woman marries a man of this behavior, they end up in great distress. So he's saying, are you sure you should be doing this? So he's making a good point. I mean, we do have to very intelligently make our choices in life. And he's right that if we get married to people of questionable character, we're probably going to undergo a lot of suffering. And so it's very wise to make intelligent decisions. Because we understand that we have our karma, but our karma is changed by the choices that we make. So it's very, very important to make good choices in our life. Because we're going to have to reap the results of those choices. Just like I might know that if I eat too many unripe fruits, I'm going to get indigestion. So if I make the choice to eat those unripe fruits, I'm going to get that indigestion. It's not that just because I have some other kind of karma, I've made that choice. So we have to make intelligent decisions. And Rukmini here is saying, don't just think I've made some unintelligent decision. Being in a woman's body, I can admit that sometimes I make unintelligent decisions. I imagine, though, that it's probably the same for the Prabhus. We just don't think things through. And Prabhupada describes that intelligence is being able to see things in the proper perspective. So sometimes, because women have the advantage in that we can emotionally connect to things easier, it's also our disadvantage. Because sometimes we can become maybe overwhelmed by our emotions and cloud our ability to make intelligent decisions. And so in those situations, sometimes we need the help of others to say, let's stop a minute here, let's think this through, and see if we're just have some strong emotion that's pushing us in this way, and maybe we need to look at it a little further. So while I don't think women have a monopoly on that, we are a little bit more susceptible. So sometimes we can read in the scriptures that women are less intelligent. So that is a statement for a time and a place. One time I gave a lecture and I entitled it, "When Women Are Less Intelligent." It's not that always we're less intelligent. And it's not that always men are more intelligent. Sometimes you also make unintelligent decisions. And when you make really bad unintelligent decisions, Bhagavatam describes you as being like a hog, a dog, a camel, or an ass. So I much prefer to be called less intelligent. That's much milder and much nicer. So I'll take it any day. I don't get offended by it if you use it properly in a way to protect me from making a wrong decision. And you'll see when you read the usage in Bhagavatam, like in the first, or in Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we read that Prabhu says that women are less intelligent. Because he's trying to tell, Arjuna's giving the argument that if there aren't the men around to protect them, you know, just swayed out of needing protection, we might be induced to take, as Krishna's saying here, not a very good choice in men to protect us. So, you know, Arjuna's giving this worry that if we can't protect them, some calamity might come up. So Prabhupada's using that to instill protection from men, not to put us down. So if we can understand that, and as a woman, to maybe look at things a little more closely and to take help from others in making decisions. We all need help making decisions. And if men take it that, oh, this is an opportunity for me to assist somebody else. This is not an opportunity for me to feel more grandiose, use my power to lord it over, exploit, and abuse. That is not the position. That's not the intention of giving those kind of statements. So when we see everything in the light, as my husband was saying, of how do I apply this in my life to better myself, not how do I use this philosophy to lord it over and make myself greater. So here Rukmini, she's also saying the same thing. You know, I haven't chosen you out of any bad example. I've made a very, very intelligent decision because I see that you are the greatest personality and that there is not a better person that I could choose to be my husband. So we understand from reading the prayers that Sri Rukmini sent with the Brahmin to Lord Krishna, that she very, very much understands this position of Krishna. We see from her prayers that she has very, very pure devotion, and it's steeped in humility, that she feels that I'm not actually qualified to be your husband, but please take me anyway. And she also has the humility that if you don't think that I am qualified to be your husband, then I will just engage in more and more devotional service until I become qualified. because she's understanding that it's by service to Krishna that we gain the qualification to have his association. So she's praying that if you don't think I'm fit, then I'm just going to undergo penances and save it to you life after life until I am, because I'm not settling for anything less. So we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he very much appreciated this mood of Srimati Rukmini Devi. And one day he induced all of his associates to enter a drama with him. And he actually played the part of Rukmini. And he was, in very heartfelt way, describing her prayers. So these prayers are very, very significant to us as Vaishnavas. Just that mood of Rukmini's humble surrender. So Rukmini, she's stating that she's just, shameless, but somehow or other, I want you, and so I'm just asking, no harm in asking. Just like one of my friends, a Sankirtan devotee, she says, I just ask everybody, all they can do is say no. What else, So Rukmini's going, I'm going to ask. This is the supreme thing, and I'm going to ask. And so she's just praying, I'm destined to have this Shishupal. But Shishupal's just like a jackal. He's trying to steal, the property of the lion. So please, come and steal me away from this. Don't let this jackal, Shishupal, come near. So we see that Rukmini's humility, it's not some kind of psychosis, that I'm just this fallen, useless person. It's actually an understanding of how great Krishna is. Because when we understand how great Krishna is, we will naturally feel insignificant. So it's not some psychosis that I'm some low person with no self-esteem who, can't achieve anything. It's actually a very deep understanding about how qualified Krishna is. So she's praying, please, come and take me away. And if you're afraid that you might kill some innocent people, I have a little plan which might help you. So we see she's not an unintelligent woman. She's very, very well versed in military science. She knows how things work. She can figure out the exact time and place that's going to be the best opportunity to fulfill her desire. So she sends this brilliant suggestion to Krishna. Now, Rukmini, she's never even seen Krishna. But just by hearing about him, it's not like she attended some huge 7-day Bhagavatam Sapta that told her all of the glories of Krishna and, like this. She just happened to hear conversations here and there in the palace. But that was enough that she could completely fix her heart on Krishna. So we see that for us to be able to develop that loving attraction for Krishna, it's very advantageous to hear about him. And so that's why we have this Nityam Bhagavata Seva, that every day we hear about the glories of Krishna. Sri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai. So she sent the plan. And it's very interesting because Rukmi, he was worried. Like they thought Krishna had died on the forest when Jarasandha surrounded the mountain and they climbed the mountain, and Jarasandha was 99% convinced that Krishna and Balaram were dead. But just in case, they said, we better just arrange this wedding the day after tomorrow. It's not like they had a 6-month engagement and all this stuff. They were afraid that there might be some mishap. And so Rukmi said to his father, you must arrange this wedding quickly. So there was only a few days. So, Rukmini, she had this brilliant thought that how am I going to get a message to Krishna? I can't trust the FedEx courier. There's no way some minister from my father's court is going to get in there because he's going to have like permits and invitations. So she knew that Brahmins were what was accessible to Krishna. And so the Brahmin could get through all the gates and personally get the darshan of Lord Krishna. So when the Brahmin came back, he somehow came into her palace, and it's the night before her wedding. And all the soldiers of all the kings had started to assemble. Because when a Kshatriya comes for a wedding, they always have this, inkling that maybe some other king is going to come and snatch away the bride. So I better come with all my army because I might have to fight for my wife here. Plus, they're always worried about Krishna. So they brought all their armies and they're all assembling. And somehow Rukmini is getting more and more worried. But then the Brahmin comes in and she doesn't even have to ask the Brahmin what was the answer. She can see just from his effulgence and the fragrance that was kind of emanating around him, that he had been sitting beside Lord Krishna. Like Krishna's fragrance was permeating the Brahmin. And he had such an effulgence that she could understand that he came with Krishna. And so she just immediately became very happy. And then the Brahmana said, yes, it's true. Krishna has come and he's going to take you tomorrow. Do not worry. And it was such a wonderful reward that she wanted to reward the Brahmin in some way. But she was thinking, there isn't anything in my possession that I have that's valuable enough that I can reward the Brahmin with. So she just simply offered her obeisance. She said, I can just offer my heartfelt gratitude. So, again, we can understand the importance of, expressing gratitude for the things that others do for us, and just, somehow or other, reciprocate with people in gratitude. It's a very, very potent method of thanks, which we don't very often do. We maybe try to express gratitude by more service or something, but we don't often do it in words or, by offering obeisances to each other. So that is a very interesting example. So the next day, Rukmini had told Krishna that it's the custom in my family that the morning of the wedding, we go to the temple of Durga, Girija, and we worship there. So she said that will be a good time to kidnap me when I come out. So it's very interesting. The night before, actually, the Brahmin came and Krishna came. And somehow or other, word got out that Krishna was there. And the night before a wedding, there's all these ceremonies for the bridegroom. They give him this kind of bath and this and that. Nobody went to the festivities for Shishupal except for maybe Jarasandha and a few of his buddies. They all just said, forget it, I'm not going to that party. They just went to see Krishna on the outskirts of the city. And meanwhile, at the same time, in Vrindavan, there was always messengers going back and forth between Dwarka and Vrindavan to keep Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj up to date on the minute-by-minute happenings of Krishna and Balaram. because they just had to hear about them all the time and know what they were doing. So these messengers got to the point of the story where they described how Rukmini sent the letter, and Krishna went with some of his army to Kundina to, fight for Rukmini. And Mother Yashoda immediately said, "What? Don't any of the Yadus have any love for Krishna? They let him go alone, all by himself, without sending even everybody else going?" She says, "Don't they have any love for my son?" And then the messenger said, actually, Lord Balaram heard that he snuck away in the middle of the night, and he followed behind with an army of his own also. And Mother Yashoda went, see, Balaram, he has great love for our Krishna. So, in the morning, she's in the temple, and all the priests, they're chanting the mantras, usual mantras to, bless Rukmini with a good husband and all these things. So they're saying their same mantras, but they're not thinking in their mind Shishupal. They're thinking in their mind, Rukmini should marry Krishna, and let's put the intention of the mantras for Krishna and Rukmini. Because everybody wanted Rukmini to marry Krishna, because she was so dear to their hearts that they could understand that she was such a qualified person that only Krishna was fit to be married to Rukmini. And so Rukmini, she is coming out of the temple, and all the kings were assembled there. And Shishupal also was there. And I don't know if he'd actually seen Rukmini or not before. He just was trying to make an alliance with Rukmini. And so they were all assembled to see her come out. And Rukmini was just keeping her eyes to the ground because she didn't want to see any of those, to use a colloquial, stinky kings. She was only wanting to, see Krishna. So when she came out, the kings in the assembly, they looked at Rukmini and they had never seen anyone so beautiful. Her beauty was so stunning that they actually all fell unconscious, completely unconscious. And, Rukmini was not actually fit to be even seen by them. She actually just exhibited a Maya Rukmini. Just like Ravana never captured the real Sita, he only captured a Maya manifestation of Sita, because they didn't have the qualifications to see her. But that manifestation was even so beautiful that they'd never seen anything like it. Have any of you men seen any woman so beautiful that you fell unconscious? Probably not. So, while they fell down unconscious, Rukmini's just scanning the crowd. Krishna must be here somewhere, And there she saw Krishna. She'd never seen him before, but she immediately knew from her heart that that is Krishna. So Krishna just, held out his hand, please come. But Krishna, he actually waited until they were back to consciousness. Because, it's not so hard to steal someone away when everybody else is unconscious. He wanted to actually, show Rukmini his full prowess. So he waited until all the kings were conscious. So we need to understand that Shishupal, in his previous life, was who? Ravana. And he kidnapped Sita. Right? He got her. But he couldn't convince Sita to marry him. So we fast forward, like he failed, Ram came and he was killed. So now we see here that Ravana, as Shishupal, he wants this same Sita. And we're down to the weddings actually being arranged, that it's going to happen. And not only that, it's the wedding day. Ravana never got that close. So everything had been arranged for him. And now Krishna is coming to kidnap Rukmini right in front of his very eyes. And, Ravana, he had to sneak and disguise himself. But Krishna just did it in full daylight with no help. Ram even brought, monkeys and everything. Krishna just reached out his hand very slowly, lifted Rukmini up into the chariot, very peacefully turned around and slowly drove away. No fear. He's not like running away in great anxiety, right? This is the ultimate insult. And these kings were totally outraged. There in the presence of everyone, they had all these armies and millions of soldiers. But somehow or other, they're going away, and Krishna says to Rukmini, don't worry, your army will handle them in no time. In other words, I'm accepting you. You are now my wife. My army is now your army. Don't worry, your army will defeat them. And in no time, Krishna's small little army and Krishna with his bow and arrows defeated all of these vast armies with tons of Akshohini soldiers that had come with all of the kings. There was Paundraka there was Jarasandha, all the Sangha of Shishupal, they had all, attended. They all had the same, like-minded. We generally associate in Sangha with like-minded people. And that's very advantageous because we associate with like-minded people. We can actually make good advancement. So all these kings, they also associated with like-minded people. And they advanced their demoniac desires, material desires. So Shishupal was so disturbed. He was just like a man who'd lost his life. He couldn't even go and fight for her. All the other friends of his had to go and try to get her back. He was just so devastated. And, stolen publicly in front of everyone. He was just so humiliated. So, we know the story how Jarasandha had to start preaching to him. He said, don't worry, I've lost a few battles with Krishna. Krishna's just a cowherd boy, don't worry. It's just fate isn't with you right this moment, just go relax a little bit, recoup your armies and, fight again. So we see that on one hand, it's good advice. Like Rukmini is saying, if I don't get you in this life, Krishna, I'm just going to perform devotional service life after life until I can get you. So Jarasandha is saying, maybe you're not attaining, defeat over Krishna. So we don't want to defeat him, but we do want to try again and again and again to improve our devotional service so that we can, improve and try harder. Sometimes we have setbacks in devotional service. Sometimes we even have fall downs. But Krishna wants us to pick ourselves up and try again. So we want to just somehow or other pray that we can have the humility that when we do something wrong, our pride doesn't overtake us so that we can't again come to a stronger footing in devotional service. So this humility of Rukmini is something that we have to somehow or other imbibe to even some degree so that we don't become defensive when we do something wrong. Like here, Krishna is saying, you've made a mistake. I'm just a low person. And Rukmini, she's not getting defensive. She's just saying, you are actually the most desirable thing. It's not true what you're saying. So we want to not get defensive when we maybe need to improve something, when we need to take better instructions, but to somehow rather, develop that humility that we can develop the proper intelligence to make good choices. So that's something that I'm taking home from this verse. If any of you would like to share any realizations or things that you feel you're able to apply from this study of Bhagavatam, you're welcome to share it, or if you have any questions. Now, I'm not one of those teachers that lets the pupils just sit there and say nothing. If you don't volunteer, I'm going to voluntold you to share something. All right, Prabhu, in the back over there by the mic.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thanks for the wonderful class. So I have one question that you were explaining that Rukmini was willing to perform austerity life after life till she gets Krishna. But in our life, like we see that we do not have that much patience and we quickly become restless. So how to have that patience that if we continue practicing devotional life with enthusiasm, then we will be able to ultimately achieve the result, and we should have that hope in our life.
That's one of the initial verses of the Upadekshamrita, that we have to have that patience. And I find that for myself, when I associate with people who have that patience and determination, it gives me the impetus to also develop more patience. Like when I see mothers who have great patience with their children, I kind of, watch and see, how do they do it? Whereas, my kids may misbehave, and I might also get overwhelmed by their misbehavior and not have much patience and, speak with them harshly or something like that. So by seeing others, how they are able to be patient, that is, for me, a big help, to see how others develop that patience. And we also tend to get very easily we give up easily when something doesn't go right. And Krishna somehow or other has graced me with a very wonderful son-in-law. And he lived with us for 8 years, I think. And I noticed that whenever something would go wrong in his life, he's also a carpenter. If something wasn't working well, or there's some problem came up with putting something together, like me, if it's not working, if it's not going together well, I just go, okay, forget it. But I'll go do something else. I see that he has this moment of frustration, and then he goes, oh, this is an opportunity for me to see how I can overcome this obstacle. And he starts getting excited on how to figure out how to overcome the obstacle. So I learned so much from seeing how he doesn't get frustrated when there's obstacles. He doesn't lose his patience. In fact, it encourages him to work harder to achieve being able to get over that obstacle. And that was a really big, learning curve, learning instruction for me. And, I'm very grateful. So now I try to, reframe it and think, oh, this could be exciting. How can I achieve this instead of losing my patience? Determination.
He described steadiness in devotional service as determination to make advancement. And then a few paragraphs later, he said that determination means that one is not frustrated or agitated by any obstacle or difficulty that comes before one, which, as you were saying. So I remember the first time I read that, I realized, well, I kind of felt exposed, that I wasn't really steady and I wasn't really determined. Because if we do feel that frustration and just kind of get feeling sorry for ourselves, it means we're not determined. Determination means we're going to find a way to get around that obstacle, like Rukmini did.
Anyone else like to share anything? What's your takeaway from this verse, Mataji? Anything you learned today? Want to share anything? All right. Okay. One last taker in the back corner there.
Krishna Mataji, thank you for this class. Mataji, you're elaborating on women being described as less intelligent in Shastras. So when we don't preach like that, but sometimes when people hear these statements, especially those who are not in touch with this movement, they feel this kind of insult to women.
Yeah, it's for some women it's very hard to hear.
Yeah. So my question is actually, can this be described as attachment to enjoyment makes us unable to make intelligent choices, and that is what it is meant by less intelligent? Because nowadays even men are becoming more of a woman nature. They cannot distinguish what is right and wrong. They go more by emotions. So can this be described as inability to or be covered by enjoying mentality or something?
Yes. It may not always be, it's enjoying in different degrees, because sometimes we make unintelligent decisions out of fear. It's not that we want to enjoy, but we're scared of what might go wrong, which is basically then we won't be happy and we can't enjoy. So yes, it is that, but sometimes it's not just gross enjoyment. It has all the subtle aspects also. And I find that if in the association of devotees, we treat each other very nicely and we don't, overlord, we don't put other people down, then women can feel very comfortable in the association of devotees and they won't take it so harshly. The problem is that the material world has treated many people very harshly. And so when a woman reads that, oh, you're just less intelligent, they're seeing that other men in their lives have said something to this effect and then treated them very harshly and unjustly. And so it brings up that past pain. And so that's why it's very painful to hear. Krishna somehow or other blessed me that, my father, my husband, the people in my life have always treated me very nicely. So I don't have this fear, and so that I can actually see that, men have very much helped me and protected me in my life. So I feel comfortable. But if you don't have that comfort around men, it's really hard and scary to hear. So I think part of it is to treat the women very nicely and to assure them that, we're here to look after you. Not in a way that's inappropriate or, too closely, but just to be very respectful and to say that, you deserve this respect and, we're here for you. So, yes, it's also true that, like I was saying, that it happens to man. And Bhagavatam is even a little bit harsher with you because you have more power to take responsibility over the outcome of a circumstance. And you need to utilize that power and that influence for good. And when you don't, it's worse. So you have more responsibility to not be unintelligent. I say that with. So when the more responsibility we have to, utilize it well. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.